All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Until then, adios.
Conversations from the Dark Side.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second edition of Conversations from the Dark Side. I'll be your MC this evening, your good pal, Amigo Aaron. Tonight, we have asked, and you have spoken, and through Twitch and the Discord polls, have selected as this evening's topic, dreams and nightmares. Dreams and nightmares, a very interesting topic to go into. And I can't wait to explore this topic with you, the listener. However, to do that, we need a little bit of help. We'd love for some of you guys to step up and join us this evening. And we have multiple avenues for you to participate. You can see a bar just below my face here that's going through the various methods of touching up with us. For starters, you can call our 24/7 automated voicemail line at 304-397-0810. You can even do this during the show. I'll be monitoring this if we get any voicemails. 3 minutes or less on the voicemails. That's all I can give you. It's a Google Voice number, so you won't be calling a human. Feel free to call in with your interesting dream or nightmare stories or comments, questions, whatever. We also have a text line. It's the exact same number, 304-397-0810. Feel free to text us your crazy story, your interesting experience. We'll take them, and we'll read them on the air if you get them in during the show. We also have, and this is the preferred method, the Discord call. You will end up in a room, and you will raise your hand, and we will bring you up to speak with myself. The address, as you can see on the screen, is bit.ly/conversations-from-the-dark-side. A lot of dashes. If you give that a go in your browser, you'll be beamed right in. We've already got some people standing by. So, again, the very interesting and thought-provoking topic of dreams and nightmares. After this break, we will get into it, and I have a very special surprise joining me this evening. We should have a good time. Let's take a quick break, and then we will get back into it.
When you go to the haunted house at Camden Park, you don't know what will happen.
Camden Park.
Just a gravel star on a mountain road. From all the tales I've been told, there's a monstrous ape soaked in sap atop a genuine 50s tourist trap. Step right up, that'll be $6. And when the tour bell rings, you gotta trust your luck. No hypertension or vertigo. If you wanna dive in that mystery hole.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Dark Side.
And we're back. Welcome back to Conversations from the Dark Side. Again, this week's topic, dreams and nightmares. Now, speaking of a dream, fulfilling a dream of mine by being joined by one of the all-time great podcasters, a pioneer in his field, and a darn fine fellow, and a man who's got oodles and oodles of experience down these roads. Give it up for Mr. Flack himself, Rob Flack O'Hara.
Well, let's wait till the end of the show to see if it's a dream or a nightmare. We'll do our best.
That's the spirit, Flack. So what do you think about this topic, Flack?
I'm very excited. I have a lot to talk about. Maybe some topic starters, and I'm really excited to hear about people's dreams and nightmares. I know a lot of people have, nightmares stick with us longer, I think, but I think dreams are really interesting, talking about, analyzing them and what affects them and just some of the weird facts about them. So I'm excited for tonight's topic.
Now, we might as well just, before we get deep into it, Flack, are you an oft dreamer? Are you someone that remembers their dreams? Do you keep a journal, any of that stuff?
I don't keep a journal anymore. Sometimes I used to have a thread on my own forum, and I would just post dreams when I remembered them. But I used to not remember my dreams before I got a CPAP. I have a CPAP machine. What was really weird is that I never got good sleep, and so I never remembered those dreams. And after I got my CPAP, I remember dreams like, I would say on average every other day. And of course, it's usually like that last one, the one that you wake up to, is the one that sticks with you the most, But yeah, I always remember. I have a lot of weird dreams.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not a guy who remembers hardly any dreams, and most of the ones I remember come right as I'm waking up, and we'll get into that. There's a reason for that, but we'll come down that line a little bit later. I want to bring on. We've already got some people in the chat room here. If you guys can raise your hands, we will start bringing you in to talk to us, and I'm happy to see some people in here. So we've got someone raising their hand now. Let me see if I can get them in here. This is kind of neat, Flack. So let me introduce you. Caller, are you there?
Yes, Aaron, can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can. Kate, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Great. We're
Hi,
so
Flack.
happy to have you out here. And I want to put you over, Kate. Kate did a lot of the voice work for us on the show. And it was how many months ago? About 7, Kate, when we decided.
Oh, my. It almost felt like it was a year ago now. But yes, it was a few months ago.
It takes us a while.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for the project to pop out, and I was excited to see it
we're having fun with
take
it.
off.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I'm glad you called in because I would love to hear what you've got to say about dreams and nightmares. Are you a frequent dreamer, or are you someone that is racked with nightmares?
Now, luckily, I'm blessed with having frequent pleasant dreams. But in the past, I was, I guess, what you would call a sufferer of sleep paralysis. A very frequent sleep paralysis.
Man. Yeah, that's scary stuff.
Can you explain that to everyone if they're not familiar with that term?
Yeah. So sleep paralysis is when you partially wake up from sleeping and part of your brain hasn't quite woken up yet, like your motor functions, right? So you can't move, but your eyes can open and you're conscious, partially conscious. So you still have that kind of sleep chemicals running through your brain, so you're still kind of dreaming, and you start seeing things, seeing people that aren't there, and seeing things that aren't there in your room, and it's kind of like a blend of reality and a dream, but you feel like it's real because you're awake, your eyes are open, and it's one of the most terrifying experiences one could have. I don't know if y'all have experienced that, but it's something that I've definitely experienced a lot when I was younger.
What did you, when you had this happen? Could you? I mean, especially after you had it happen more than once, could you tell yourself? Did you know what was happening and you knew it would be over soon, or were you constantly afraid of it?
It depended. Like sometimes it seemed so real. Like a lot of the ones that I remember the most, and like Flack said, you always remember your nightmares, but just kind of remembering waking up and then seeing what I thought was like a man staring at me with really large eyes and no mouth, and that freaked the freaked the H out of me, and I couldn't tell. I couldn't move, right? I couldn't
Yeah.
scream. I couldn't do anything.
It's
And
interesting you bring that up because I have read that there have been some studies wondering if there's a connection between sleep paralysis and what some people, report or refer to as alien abductions. And because
Right.
it's it's such a similar experience, where people say, that I was frozen, I couldn't move, and there was a presence there. And it was interesting that you mentioned the large eyes.
yeah, and I'm an engineer. I'm a kind of a rational person, but it does when you're in the throes of it and you're scared because you feel like someone's in your house. You want to just scream, you want to get up and run, but you are stuck. You can't move at all.
Also there's a phenomenon called shadow people, which it's often linked to sleep paralysis. You hear about it all the time, and I much like Flack was saying with the UFO encounter, the alien encounter. I wonder if the mind manipulates a what it perceives as a human form and your half awake consciousness, and sort of that's what you're looking at. A figment, that's not fully formed as a human. It's sort of the closest facsimile you can get in a semi-conscious state.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I know that humans, we're pattern-seeking animals, and we like to see faces in things, right? That's why we see faces in tortillas and faces in the clouds and stuff like that. And so I'm sure there's some part of our lizard or simian brain it just sees two dots and it's like, that's a face, that is eyes, even though that wasn't there. And in that instance, I just remember waking up and then getting up really fast and kind of screaming and being really sweaty, and nothing was there, thankfully. And then I'm relieved, and then I go turn around and sleep on my stomach because I'm like, I can't look at anything else. I don't want to look at any shadows, look at any.
Wow. So is there any kind of treatment for this, or was it something that you just grew out of? It went away eventually?
It was something that, so one thing I would do one thing I read online was try to keep your arms under the covers. And what I used to do was sleep either with my arms under the pillows or above the covers. And it could have just been a psychosomatic trick. You read something and then you believe that it works. Sure. But once I started doing that, the sleep paralysis situations started happening less frequently.
Has it happened in your adult, like in your adult life, say the past decade or so?
Hasn't happened probably in the last 3 years, but it's happened once before, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. But it wasn't as dramatic. It wasn't a person. It was just, I woke up and I couldn't move. And just that feeling was kind of freaking me out. But luckily there wasn't an alien there or a person.
Did you notice that these events, would they be accompanied by any sort of dreams or nightmares that you could remember that would, before they would happen or around the time it happened?
So I used to have dreams that it could have just been me watching too many horror movies and stuff, but of dreams where like either I was getting chased or about to get killed, or even dreams where I was the killer and I was trying to hide a body and run away and stuff.
Oh, jeez.
I know.
Holy smokes.
I haven't killed.
That took a dark turn.
I know, that's a very weird. You wake up feeling super guilty, and then you're like, I didn't kill anybody.
You're just happy you're not going to jail.
Yes.
Right. Because that's what that would go in. I woke up many times and been so relieved that I didn't do the horrible or stupid thing that I did in the dream.
And for like that 10 seconds, you just wake up, you feel like it was real, and you're like, oh gosh, what did I do? And then it was a dream. But yeah, I had a lot of dreams about, maybe it was anxiety going through college and high school and all that stuff. It was, stressful, but I thankfully haven't been having them as much. So
do you have any really bad nightmares that you remember that in particular that stand out?
There was one when I was really young, and we're talking about like 8 years old, and it still sticks with me because my dad was really into aliens and UFOs, and so I'd watch the Discovery Channel and those shows with him, and that was kind of our thing, right?
That's
And,
great right before bed. Let me tell you,
right? No, yeah.
my entire family right now is on vacation. I'm the only person home, and I have set the TV to Game Show Network. I'm not watching
gosh.
anything creepy before bed.
Right. The most clean thing that you can watch. Nothing creepy at all about Game Show Network, unless it's about aliens or something. But I had a dream where I was went outside of my house, my childhood home, and there was a row as far as I could see of just saucers above my head. And that, it felt real. Like my dreams, I know some people have that ability they can tell it's a dream when they're in a dream, but for me, a lot of my dreams feel like I'm actually there. And it felt like, oh crap, here's a bunch of aliens, the world's ending, something bad's really about to happen. And that feeling really, like, I was really scared in that dream. Like there was nothing beyond that other than just this sense of like awe of looking up in the air and seeing these large discs that took up the majority of the sky. And that, even until now, like sometimes when I see like the moon when it's really full and really big, that freaks me out just a little bit. I have to remember that was only a dream I had many years ago.
Do you believe in UFOs? I mean, do you think that, or aliens? Do you think that's something that it could exist or does exist?
I think it's something, I think that's something.
Because
that
could easily compound your fear. It's easy.
Yeah.
If there's a vampire chase or something, you feel like, it's not that real. But if you believe in aliens, one could come down to get you. That makes it worse. Or better.
I think that there's a possibility of that existing. And I think that does kind of add a little extra reality, at least for me, to these dreams that I have about UFOs and stuff. But of course, I grew up kind of with my dad, kind of talking about Area 51 and all that stuff. So that I was kind of raised on the whole UFO and ghost stuff. So
now I'm going to have to ask my kids if I've given them nightmares from all the stuff I've made them watch over the years.
That's what I was just thinking. I can see my kid's going to call one of these shows in 15 years and say, oh, my dad did a bunch of crazy stuff. That's all I need.
Just therapy with our kids, right? So.
Right. I'm afraid of the moon now because of my dad and his UFO shows.
Before we move on, Kate, I got to ask you, since because we sort of dwelled on all the bad stuff. Do you have any dreams, maybe a reoccurring that's a good thing that you let you remember?
Yes. So a dream that I really love to have, and I feel lucky when I do, is whenever I have dreams where I can float, basically levitate. And what I do in my dream is I put my arms to my side, to my waist, and I start pushing down. Like if I was gonna, push myself up, like onto a couch or something, and I start floating, and it just feels so natural. And every time in my dream I'm like, all right, somebody record me while I do this so I can prove to myself that I can actually float. But it feels real again. Like I feel like, okay, now I have this special ability where I can float around and fly. And
so that's really interesting, and this is one of the things that I pulled out, and I've read this before. But 90% of kids report having dreams that they could fly, and only about a third of adults have that same thing. And most adults, when they do dream that they can fly, it's like what you've described. It's more of like a levitating or a hovering slightly over the ground. I've had that.
Yeah.
But they don't know why that goes away. But that a lot of people lose the ability to have that dream.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know why. I know that I think it can be attributed to something similar to sleep paralysis, right? That feeling of you don't have control over your legs, you're not connected to the ground, you're in bed, right? So you feel like you're floating. But
do you believe in OBEs? Do you think there's a connection there? Out of body stuff?
I don't know. I don't really know if that's because that kind of involves, pushing your spirit or essence out into the world and kind of exploring the real world. But I'm pretty sure it's a dream. I just wish these dreams had some basis in reality where I could actually float.
Keep those powers. Yeah, when you wake up, that'd be great. But not the one with the giant bug-eyed guy following you around. Not that one.
No, but the floating stuff.
But the floating one, yeah. We have to be able to pick and choose.
Right.
I love it. Hey, listen, Kate, thanks so much for sharing your experiences with us. And thanks again for really helping us out a lot with getting some of the stuff together for the show. Everyone should check out Kate's YouTube channel, Macintosh Librarian. I can tell you, and Flack will back me up on this, I hate Apple, and I'd never liked the Macs. And I love her channel. I love it's cute. I love Mackie. I've got my little Mackie sitting back here, and I watch every episode. And she has this ability to get me to enjoy things that I never gave any crap about, like educational companies and stuff like that. So, an excellent job, Kate, and we really do appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Great. And so we're going to take a quick break, everybody, and we'll be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
What is that?
The world's largest teapot was dedicated across the border in West Virginia today, but before that could happen, a lot of other things had to occur, including a little help from our Wayne Van Dyne.
And this is the world's largest teapot, a town landmark that almost wasn't. Local citizens wanted to restore it, but it was nearly falling apart from age.
Well, I went and took a look at it. And with the rotted floor, the rotted walls, the windows out, the door off, I told them to burn it. I didn't think anybody could fix it.
Someone did. It was restored by volunteers with money donated locally. But then a dispute with state highway officials over its location almost left them with no place to put it. Governor Caperton's office finally cut the red tape, setting the stage for today's celebration, which even rain failed to stop. So it's official now, the world's largest teapot has been dedicated in Chester, West Virginia. Police Chief Terry Potts, Mayor Sally Riley, I dare you.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my hand.
Wayne Van Dyne, KDKA Eyewitness News, Chester.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
Hello, everyone. We're back with more Conversations from the Darkside. We have already brought up our next caller. Go ahead, caller. Where are you and what's your name?
Hello, I'm TSI Spartan or Patrick, and I'm from the mountains of West Virginia.
Oh yes. Now you, Pat, you called during our first show and shared some
Yes.
really good stuff. Now, before we get deep into what you're going to talk about, just getting back to what Kate was talking about, have you ever had the situation with sleep paralysis like that, or do you know anyone in your family that's had that problem?
No, I actually went to college with someone who talked about it.
Yeah.
But no, I've never had it. I take my sleeping very seriously, and and I've been accused of being dead once or twice.
I should take mine more seriously. That's my problem. I really have a whimsical approach to sleep.
No.
Flack, we didn't. Since it's still on my mind, so we just talked to Kate. Did you mention? Have you had it happen to you? The sleep paralysis?
No, actually, my sister has it, and it's something that's developed later in life. And I think she said that my mom told her that my mom had it, but my dad never has, and I never have. So I don't know if that's something that gets passed down or what. We don't really know, but yeah, my sister does. But I've read about it. I mentioned that alien abduction thing, and if you're familiar with, it's funny because those stories have repeated over time. Back in the medieval ages, they would talk about incubus or succubus, and
Sure.
the difference is the male or female version of these demons that would come in your window at night and sit on your chest and hold you where you couldn't move. And those, the documentation that we have of that from that time, it's exactly the same story as the alien abduction. You know what I mean? It's the same feeling, and it's that same thing. And so now they're thinking this has probably been sleep paralysis all along. But it sounds terrible. I mean, the way she was describing it sounds horrifying. Being awake but asleep at the same time.
Yeah, that sounds horrible. So Spartan, what do you have for us this evening, my friend?
I have a story that I'm privy to. I had a great aunt visiting my family when I was about, 14, 15 years old. And it was during the summer, and she was staying with my grandparents, so every day I would go over, and do odd jobs, for my grandfather, mow his yard, whatever the case was. We'd get into something. And I would spend time with my great aunt, which I didn't get to see very often. And that was one reason. And also, my mom wasn't a big fan of her, I don't think, which made me want to go spend even more time. Because what better way to irritate parents? Because she always was into the occult, or at least it's the occult nowadays. But back then, she would read tea leaves, or was it phrenology, where she would touch the back of your head.
Oh,
the
read
bumps on your
the
head, yep.
bumps. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So she would do stuff like that, and she'd always give me real strange advice on it, which was just a blast to hear. Some of it I forgot over the years, but one or two things she said are still to this day just as crystal clear as if she told me yesterday. But this was about dreams. I came over one morning and we were sitting at the table, and she said, "Hey, sometime later on the day, I had the weirdest dream last night, and I got to tell you about it, and maybe you can help me try to figure out what it means." And I said, "Okay, sure." And we sat down later that day, and she said, "I had a dream where I was fishing at a lake, and I just kept catching shoes." And I was like, okay. And she said I would reel in shoe after shoe after shoe, and she said I had like a impressive pile of shoes, next to me, and that's all I would ever get. And that was the entire dream. And I'm like, well, that's strange. I don't even begin to know anything about that. Do you like to fish? And she's like, well, sometimes I'll take the grandkids fishing or something, but and I was like, well, I mean, I got nothing for you. And we went on about our business. And then the next day I came over, and she's just like, hey, I got to talk to you for a second. I had another weird dream last night. I was like, will you go fishing again? And she was like, well, yeah, kinda. She went fishing again. She was fishing, and it was the whole shoe thing again. But then she said she also felt like she was like at an aquarium or something, because she was walking down this hallway, and whenever she looked out the windows, it was like water. When you're walking through the aquarium, you can walk through those tunnels where there's water all around you.
Right.
She said it reminded her something like that like she was walking through. She equated it almost to like walking through a train car with seats on either side, but you could see like water outside. And I was like, like a submarine. And she was like, whatever, something like that. Too many windows, I'm like, okay. So there was that one. She goes, that's just a weird dream. She goes, I don't know what y'all, feed me here or what, this travel, but I'm all frazzled, I'm all messed up. I don't hardly ever dream like this. Okay. Couple days pass. I come back again, and she's like, I gotta talk to you. I had a wild dream last night. It was crazy. And I'm like, what was it? She said she was at a train station, and she was waiting on a train, and everyone there with her was dressed very nicely. Just everyone just dressed to the nines, apparently. And she said she wasn't dressed near as nice as everybody else was. And the train stopped, and she got up to get on it, and a gentleman stopped her, and he goes, oh, no, ma'am, I'm sorry, you can't get on this train. You're not allowed on this train. And she's like, why not? He goes, well, this is the train to the graveyard.
Yeah, you don't want to get on that one.
And she goes, it only dawned on me that everyone was dressed really nice, like their funeral clothes.
Okay, yeah, that is creepy.
And she was like, that's just disturbing. And I was like, okay, that one got me. The fishing wasn't bad. The submarine wasn't bad.
That's like a Twilight Zone right there.
But that one was bad. She said, and that one was weird. It was like in black and white. It was really strange.
That is strange. I've got here, as you were talking, I was looking this up. I talked to Teresa from Teresa's Haunted History of the Tri-State, and I will say she's got the occult library of the occult, the paranormal. I told her what we were talking about tonight, so she picked me out some books to go along with this, and one of these here I've got here is the Dictionary of Dreams by Rosa and Sarah. And I was looking up fishing, because that's a dream you don't hear all that often, but I could absolutely see it would happen. And
find it soon, see if that's in there.
Yeah, good luck on that one.
Well, there's something to this story at the end.
I thought that was it. There's more. We'll keep going.
I wouldn't have just told you 3 random dreams that my aunt
had. Okay, well, please,
aunt.
Continue. Go ahead.
Well, her visit was over, and she went back home.
Uh-huh.
And
hope she didn't take the train.
No. But she calls. I was over at my grandparents' house one evening. I spent a lot of time over there, and she calls and asks for me. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to her. And she said, when I got home, I took my dog out for a walk. And she goes, I could go like a couple of miles all around she lived out in rural Indiana, rural Illinois. I think it was rural Indiana. It's Illinois or Indiana, but I'm thinking Indiana sounds more rural than Illinois. It does for some reason. It seems like it was Indiana. But anyway, she said she was out walking her dog, and she passed this lake right near one of the main roads, and she said there were people diving in it. And she said, well, maybe they're having some sort of training or something like that. But she walks by, and she asked one of the gentlemen, she goes, what do y'all, what's going on here? And he said, well, about 5 or 6 days ago, close to a week ago, a little boy ended up missing. And we can't find him anywhere. We thought he may be kidnapped, but also he was seen walking down this road. So we thought we're having people search the lake just in case, dredge the lake just in case he's, divers go down and see if they could, find him in case he's in the lake or something like that. And she said, well, that's horrible. And did you find any, hopefully, obviously didn't find anything. He said, well, it's really hard because this lake was actually owned by a railroad. And whenever they got done doing the lumber cutting and everything in this area and the hauling, they just took all the train cars and just ran them into this big lake, just built the tracks and just ran and just dumped all the crap at the bottom of the lake. And we can't get down in there, there's so many places a body could get hung up or get trapped inside those train cars that we couldn't. It'd really be hard to find him, and the body may not surface. So we're still looking, and they never ever found the boy. But all that happened after my great aunt left to come visit. So while the boy went missing and they were dredging the lake that was filled with train cars, my aunt had those 3 consecutive dreams about fishing and finding shoes, walking through almost like a train car that was underwater, and then the train was going to the graveyard.
Super creepy.
And then she got back home and she called and told me that. So as for me, I don't really remember my dreams that much. I don't really have anything that impressive.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to top. There is
that I can remember, but that takes the cake. She won the family, creepathon on that one.
I want to circle around to something Pat said earlier. He said that she was having his aunt said, or his aunt or great aunt.
Great aunt.
Great aunt said that she was having weird dreams of, what are you guys feeding me? And this is something that I used to hear from my parents and my grandparents. They would all say, whatever you eat before bed can affect your dreams. But I don't think that I've ever experienced that. But have you guys heard that before? Do you think that's true? Have you
It's an
experienced
old
that?
wives' tale. I mean, I've heard it all my life. Don't eat anything heavy before you go to bed. It'll cause you to have nightmares. But, through college and through jobs where you work midnights, we've abused our bodies. I can pretty much safely say I've heard a lot of your stories, Flack, and I know Aaron. We got to safely say the 3 of us have probably abused our bodies as much as they possibly could be abused.
I eat heavy in bed, then go to sleep. And I would have I would live in a perpetual nightmare like Freddy Krueger if that was the case.
So I've never noticed my eating habits affect. Now, if I eat a bunch and then try to lay down, I feel I don't sleep as well.
Sure, yeah.
But that's just you're going to bed, with a full stomach or just overstuffed or something. But no, I've never really noticed anything like affecting your dreams or anything like that I'm, but then again, like I said, I sleep like the dead. So, I don't know.
Super creepy.
And looking back on the sleep paralysis, I wouldn't know if I had it or not, because once I wake up, I sleep so deep, it takes me about 20 minutes to come into the land of the living anyway. So, hell, I could be paralyzed. I don't know. I don't think I am. So.
Very good. Hey, I liked it, man. Hey, listen, thank you for coming back on the show, Spartan. We appreciate
lots
it.
Of crazy family. It's no problem.
You could spin a yarn, my friend. That's for darn sure. So we're going to take another quick break, and we will be back. I believe we have a guest coming up next from the UK. So when we get back, we will take this thing across the ocean. We'll be back in a few seconds.
On Friday, October 29th, at the Dunbar Rec Center in Dunbar, West Virginia, we give the people what they want. Sensation, horror, shock. Send them out into the streets to tell their friends how wonderful it is to be scared to death, as International Combat Sports presents Monster Party. 7 terrifying matches, including Misery versus Paparazzi, Smokey C versus SP the Ghost, Kirk Blackman versus Jason the Gruesome, Johnny Blast versus Kronos with David Barnabas Spector, Drex Dyer versus the War Pig, Laura Lovelace defending the ICS Women's Championship against Lena Lennox. And in the main event, Ron Mathis defends the ICS Grand Championship in a 2 out of 3 falls match against the Heathen Cruel. Be there and be scared.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
All right. So, we are ready for our next guest tonight. Let's hope we have some luck here. We have Martin on the line. Martin, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
We can hear you. How are you, man?
Oh, I'm hanging in there.
I know who you are. I didn't recognize your name, Martin. Our good buddy from TSI.
It's very, very appropriate for video games, given that it's Mario. So I tend to incorporate it into everything.
Now, you are not from the UK. So clearly, I'm an idiot.
That's why I kind of I was like, oh, they've got a talker on the side.
Ignore me. I'm an idiot.
I'm from Texas. So.
Well, welcome to the show, man. Martin's a real good guy that we know from the TSI group. So what do you think about this, man? Dreams and nightmares. Do you have anything interesting down this line?
Well, see, that's what I'm wondering, because I've had two that I think might be interesting. One where I think I actually died, and you often hear in movies like,
"Oh, geez,
oh, you can't die in your dreams, you'll die." And one that actually featured a popular character, like an actual horror figure from movies.
Oh, cool. All right.
So, well, that seemed to grab you. So I guess I think maybe because the first time I realized my father could die was imagining him defending me from Jason Voorhees.
Oh, geez.
That as a child, like, it never really occurred to me. I saw the movie and I got scared, and it never really occurred to me my parents can be killed. So I had a dream with Jason Voorhees sort of pursuing me, but at a distance. And everywhere I went, it was like he would arrive where I was, and I could hear him coming. And then I would get to hear family members and friends and people being butchered behind me as I ran away. And the weirdest thing was I ended up back in my original childhood neighborhood, and it was completely empty. Just no one was there. And I finally saw him, oh, that is Jason chasing me. And for some weird reason, I got on a tricycle to run away. This teeny little tricycle, with your knees coming up and hitting the handlebars. And I turned towards the road that would go, this long narrow road that would go to a highway. And I was like, yes, hope, I'm getting away. Somehow I thought the highway was freedom. And as I got closer and closer, it pixelated like an old TV screen as you got closer and closer.
Yeah.
And then I hit it, and it did that rubbery effect. Like I imprinted into it. And I turned back around, and he was right behind me doing his little slow walk. And then I woke up. But I've never had a dream that included, popular figures or, anything like that.
And how old were you when you had this one?
I believe I was in my teens.
It's funny. I'm not, as I mentioned before, I don't really remember a lot of my dreams, but I had a very traumatic dream when I was a kid, and it's sort of similar to yours. Do you guys remember, now this is going to date me, you guys, I'm sure one of the two of you at least has watched the Brady Bunch television show. There was an episode where Bobby started idolizing Billy the Kid, okay? And they got a guy to come on that said, oh, Billy the Kid wasn't a good guy. He killed people in cold blood. He was a scumbag. And then Bobby had this dream where he met him. So my dream, I must have watched this because my dream was a takeoff on that, except it was the Joker from the Batman, probably Cesar Romero. I don't know. He came in, and he came into my house, and I was like, oh, man, it's the Joker. I was real happy to see him. And then and he was like, it's me. I hear in the flesh. And then he went back in the back of the house, and I heard him killing my parents. He was chopping them up. Oh my gosh. And I freaked out, and I remember waking up crying, and I slept in my mom and dad's bedroom for days after that because of how horrific it was. And I remember it to this day. And I hadn't thought about that for a while, but you actually your creepy dream reminded me.
I think the thing in it was hopelessness, because I kept fleeing to people I knew who would shelter me.
Yeah.
Like my relatives and friends. And then I could always know he's almost here. And then I would run, and he would hurt the people I cared about. I would get away, and it was oh, that's my aunt and uncle dying. And that's my, you know what I mean? So it was and then I ended up back in my literal childhood neighborhood, and there was no one there. It was that late summer day and you can't hear anything moving. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was very, very, very creepy. And then the whole, I'm sorry, Paul.
No, please go ahead.
No, and then it was just hitting that. That was just the weird. I don't know. I always remembered it because of the TV screen at the end. It was like, what the heck is up with that? You know, it was just why. I don't know. It was the hopelessness. I think that's what it was. It was a dream about hopelessness, which makes sense as my teenage years.
I always have that. Like every time that I dream like I'm going to my house or something, it's always the house I grew up in. It's always the neighborhood. It's never where I live now or any of that. I always end up, and my dad still lives in the house that I grew up in, but it's so weird. Like I'll be an adult, you know, and then I'll be like, well, I got to go home, and I always end up back in that neighborhood. But I did want to comment on trying to flee Jason Voorhees on a children's tricycle.
I have no clue. And it's weird that the little things I remember about it, like one of my cousins lived in that neighborhood too. And I remember that was the house I was at, and I think there was actually a tricycle in the yard at
here's
the
the
time
thing.
from my childhood memories. And I think it was because it was so futile in the dream. Think about it. You know what I mean? Like I jumped on a kid's tricycle, and I've done that for fun with kids where you're hitting your knees on like the and you're pedaling, and nothing. You're not going anywhere.
But here's the thing: I've seen all those movies, and I've seen people try to walk away from Jason. It doesn't work. I've seen him try to run. It doesn't work. Drive away. It doesn't work. So I mean, at least I don't hate it. I think it's a valid. I think it was worth trying. That's what I'm trying to say.
We haven't seen anyone killed by him who was on a tricycle, so there's
Yeah,
no
I
precedent
actually,
for it.
like I never saw anybody killed in that dream, so at least I was lucky that way. It was always like happening behind me. You know what I mean? Like as I ran out the door, like, oh, he's here, you know, so I was at least fortunate in that.
That is crazy.
You know.
Yeah, I want to hear about this other dream where you felt like that you actually died in your dream.
Oh well, I've fallen to my death repeatedly. I mean, I don't feel the pain, but
Did
the
you
one that
you actually hit in the dream?
Oh yeah, I hit. Like,
do you
and
hit
it's
like? Do you
flat.
see yourself hit, or do you feel it as you
I
hit?
see it first person.
Okay.
Like, that's the ground. But I will say, I black out. It's not like I feel my bones breaking or anything, you know. But the one that got me, because usually I know I'm dreaming. There's usually, you know, something that'll give it away, and I'm like, oh, I'm dreaming. I might not be able to control it, but I know I'm dreaming. And this one was at my house out in the country where we had 2 houses on the property. And the reason it freaked me out was because I did not know I was dreaming. Yeah, I woke up, there was a loud noise, sounded like gunfire. I went out of my house with my firearm to look at my family's house across the way on the other side of the property. And there was a outline. I didn't actually see the guy. It was an outline of a man wearing like Western gear. Like I could see he was wearing a hat. And I shouted at him across the yard, and it was at night, and there were the light poles and stuff up in the yard. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? And he just turned and started shooting at me. And I ducked behind a huge green car I had as a teenager, a 72 Sabre, huge vehicle. And I tried to shoot back at him, and my gun was just not working right. And a round bounced off the hood and clipped my head, and I went down. And then I got to see this creepy, like, dazed moment where his boots, and I could actually see him at this time, walked up to the other side of the car doing that crunch, crunch, and came around the front of the car, and I rolled my head up, like, dazed, to see him, and I still couldn't see his face, but I could see that outline of the cowboy hat, and he just swung his gun to my face and pulled the trigger, and I saw the flash, and I heard the noise, and then boop, awake.
Oh man!
Wow.
You know, but it
Holy
wasn't
moly.
until I woke up, because it was completely, other than there's a strange dude in my yard shooting.
Yeah.
It was perfectly like reality. You know what I mean? And like normally it'll give it away. Like, okay, this is a monster. I feel scared, but I know I'm dreaming. You know what I mean? And it was a normal person just with a gun. You know, and so that one, and like I said, I've fallen and hit, and so I don't believe that whole, like, they always try to put that in horror movies, like, oh, you die in your dreams. I'm like, no,
Sure.
you don't.
Yeah.
You just wake up surprised. It's like falling in your dreams where you do that jerk awake, you know, when you're, so, yeah. But that was just, I just thought you might, because those were both kind of like weird things that happened. I thought you might find them interesting.
That would, you know, the whole being shot thing I've never been shot in a dream that I can remember, but that would make me super paranoid to have that dream given my work circumstances, because I'm around people that have firearms all the time, and I'm like, I kid you not when I say I'm less than 10 foot from a firing range, an indoor one. So I see the biggest, meanest, and most horrible weapons you've ever seen being shot right next door to me. So I would, and I'm paranoid about it as it is. If I think if I had a dream like that, I would just stay home from work that day.
It's also funny that he said that Martin said that his gun didn't work in the dream, because that's super common, and I have that all the time where somebody's trying to come in and the bullets like fall out of the end,
it jams, or the trigger gets so strong that like you feel like you have no muscle strength to pull the trigger. Have you ever felt?
I wonder why that's such a universal thing.
You know, I just looked that up in the dream book here while you guys were talking.
Fishing for shoes.
No, listen. This is funny. Now, I don't want to put anybody on the spot here, but this is what you would expect them to say, right? They said when you have a gun in a dream that doesn't fire, it's an internal feeling of sexual inadequacy.
Okay,
I'll just leave that hanging out there.
Oh, for sure.
Well, given
given
the timing in my current state at the time, it kind of made sense, you know. So.
I've got dreams where I frequently fire a bazooka. I don't want to brag, but you know how that goes. Listen.
Well, I forgot to mention the dream where I happened to be the Death Star, you know. Okay.
One of our dreams, I drive a muscle car and somebody here is riding a tricycle. I'm just saying. I don't want to call anybody out.
We're going off the rails. All right. Hey, Martin, thanks for chiming in with your story, man. I really appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah, that was great.
Yes, sir.
We will get you back on anytime, my friend. Let's take a very quick break, and we will be back and queue up our next guest. Hang on, everyone. We'll be right back.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
All right. So we are queuing up another guest, but Flack, you've got a couple interesting tidbits, my friend.
And you know what? I was thinking about what's the weirdest dream, like the most shocking kind of dream I've ever had. I mean, not really a nightmare, but I had a dream, and this was like 5 years ago, maybe. And this was a dream that was in black and white. And I don't remember having many dreams or any dreams that were in black and white. But I was also in dreams, I'm always me, you know what I mean? But in this dream, I was like a World War II soldier, which is not, I'm not really into, I'm not into World War II. I mean, I'm not really a big war buff kind of guy or anything. So it was like I was in a movie, you know? And I was at the bottom of this really tall hill. And at the top of the hill, there was a machine gun, like sniper, like shooting down, you know? And I saw this guy at the very top, like jump into the little crow's nest or whatever, and he got that guy, but he got hurt. And so he started coming down the hill towards me, and I saw this first aid thing. And so I started going up towards him, and we met right in the middle, and I handed it to him, and it was me.
What the heck?
So they were both me. And then the other me was like, man, thanks for saving my life. I was like, yeah, you know. And he said, I'm going down, but you got to go up to the thing. There's another sniper up there. And so I go, okay. So I went up to the sniper's nest, and there was a guy in there, and I jumped on him. I don't remember if I threw him out or what. But when I was up there, he shot me in the arm, and I was like, oh no. And then I was like, I got to get out of here. And I started going down the hill, and I saw a guy coming up the hill at me. It was me. I mean,
what the heck was going on in there?
And I brought myself the first aid thing and put it on my arm. And I was like, all right, I'm going down to the hill, but there's another sniper. And so it was just this loop. And I had that dream for hours. Like, it just went on and on and on. Like, I was just stuck being both ends of this stupid thing. It was the weirdest thing.
That is goofy right there. That's a weird one.
I always wanted to try to turn it into a short story or something, but it doesn't have an ending, But I did
that
want
sounds
to tell
more like
you,
a nightmare.
I asked my wife if she had any dreams that she remembered, and she reminded me of one. And there are hard feelings about this dream.
Uh-oh.
So this was, 10 years ago. My wife woke up in the middle of the night and she said, I just had the most amazing dream. I said, really? She said, it was called The Birds. And I started laughing. She goes, what's so funny? I was like, your dreams have titles?
Yeah.
Like a movie? And she goes, yeah, it just said The Birds. And then she started talking. I was like, did it scroll up? Like, did it just appear like The Birds? Or did you just know it was called The Birds? She said, no. It was just, I just knew it. Then she started talking. And I was like, are there curtains? Did the curtains come back on the movie? And it said The Birds? She said, never mind. And she went to bed. And I asked her the next day, and she said, no, I don't remember it. And so, so neither of us know what the dream was about. All we know is that it was called The Birds.
Man, I wish my dreams had title cards and stuff in it. That'd be awesome.
Said.
It'd be easier to keep track of them, too,
There's closing credits, like starting me as the World War II soldier. I don't know how it works, so...
I love
anyway,
it.
Nobody knows what the dream was about. She forgot about it. So
oh, man.
Shouldn't have given her a hard time about it.
Speaking of giving somebody a hard time, Flack, this is a man I never give a hard time because he saves my bacon repeatedly. Plus, he could kill me in print. I'm going to hand it over here to our good friend, our good buddy, Pixels at Dawn, staying up late. What's going on, Pix?
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Oh, we're great, man. I'm glad to have you on here. A little taste from across the sea. Pix, what time is it over there right now?
It is 2:30 a.m. at the moment.
It's time for you to be dreaming.
Yeah, you should.
I'm definitely a night owl, and it does mean that when I go to bed, I hit the pillow and I fall asleep immediately, which is good for dreaming, to be fair.
So you're a big dreamer then.
I am. I'm a bad rememberer. So, and I just talking about this. On this podcast makes me think that maybe I need to start just for my own sort of entertainment, really. Start like a dream journal or something like that. Because I'm a fairly creative person, so I'm interested in the stories that come out of these things.
Sure. Can you remember any really good ones?
So there were two that came to mind. I've actually got a few more because in this modern world of social media. Quite often I'll wake up and then immediately send a message to my friends saying, you'll never guess what I was dreaming about. so I've been able to plumb the archive, so I've got a few I can talk about. The first one that came to mind from when I was a teenager, and it's stuck with me ever since, was I was in a field. It's like clearly late at night, very dark. I was in a field bordered with hedges. And I have this real feeling of unease, like something is coming for me. On the horizon, there's a huge forest that I can see, and out of my peripheral vision, I can see sort of there's something behind the trees. And the thing that I can relate it to, I don't know whether you remember the classic 80s kids sci-fi film Flight of the Navigator.
Oh yes, yeah.
So there's a sequence in that where he's just been returned at the start of the film from being picked up by the spaceship, and he's sort of scrambling through the forest, and he sees flashes through the trees of what I'm sure you've seen a lot over in your part of the world, a big metal water tower with a big domed top on it.
Sure.
And it reminds me a lot of that, but it was just the dome at the top I could see over the trees. But it felt to me like it was some sort of alien spacecraft or something, and I felt like I never saw any aliens, but I knew they were coming, so I just started running, and they never caught me, but they were always behind me, and that was kind of the entire extent of the dream. And I had that multiple times throughout my teenage years.
Oh, do you not have water towers?
We don't.
I was just thinking that too.
The story.
So we, interestingly, I nearly called in last week. One of the strange things that I have from when I was a child, we used to go and stay on holiday on the south coast of England, in a place on top of a hill over a town called Swanage, and the place we stayed was like a split. It was a normal house, but the top floor was like a flat that could be rented out for holiday accommodation. And I always remember there, I had a real distinct unease and fear about a water tower I could see from my room in the attic of the house, couple of roads across, and it was an old water tower. But a lot of water towers in the UK are actually big stone buildings, and they have all the water stuff inside, and so they almost look. This one looked almost like a little bit of a castle. It had like little turrets on the side.
Okay.
But I for some reason, as sort of a probably about 9-10-year-old, I hated that because I could just see the silhouette of it in the distance, and I always felt like there was someone there watching me or something like that. And every time I saw it, it just disturbed me greatly. So yeah, we do have water towers, but they're not anything like the ones
kind of disguise them a
South
little
America.
bit.
Yeah, definitely.
As a child, I used to, well, I still do, but I have family in Chicago, and so we drive. It's about a 12-hour drive for me, and there is a town in Missouri, which is about halfway between me and Chicago, and the name of the town is Bourbon. When you come into town, they have one of those giant water towers, and on the side it says Bourbon. And
nice.
I laugh every time. I'm in 40 years. Every time I laugh as I go by. But yeah, so that's weird that those dreams of like, and it's kind of a common theme, and I think a lot of people have this about aliens, or it could be aliens, it could be just somebody pursuing us that we don't know who it is. I definitely remember as a kid having a dream where aliens were trying to get in the house, and I just kept retreating. Like, I moved to the back of the house and they were still coming, and then at the end of it I would get under my bed, and I could remember seeing the feet of people, and then I would wake up before they got me or whatever they were doing. But it's just that kind of feeling like somebody's pursuing you, and you don't always know who it is or why they're doing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're talking about water towers. I go past Florence, Kentucky every once in a while. They have a big water tower in the town, and it says Florence, y'all, on it because it's Kentucky, all right? They got into a dispute with the local mall because they used to have Florence Mall in there. And so just to anger the mall, they just whited out the parts of the mall that had an M. So now it says Florence, y'all. So that's the least scary. If you ever get scared of a water tower, think of that one, Pix.
Yeah.
That should put your mind at rest. Now,
I was going to say, on the other end of the spectrum, Pix, is I live in a suburb right outside Oklahoma City called Yukon. And our water tower, the biggest water tower in town, says Yukon on one side, and the other side, the whole side says home of Garth Brooks. so there you go. That's what you see when you drive by here. Just this big, imagine the biggest, scariest, menacing water tower you can think of, and on the side it says home of Garth Brooks, which, by the way, is at Garth Brooks Boulevard exit. They're very proud that Garth Brooks went to high school here.
But he doesn't live in the water tower.
He probably owns it, would be my guess.
So, Pix, you said you had some other good ones, man. What else you got?
So on a lighter note, also in my teenage years, I remember. So young Pix encountering the ways of the woman. And I have a very strong memory of the big crush that I had in my school years, and I remember a dream where I was marrying this girl on a double-decker bus, which was off-roading through fields for no apparent reason.
I would pay to see that.
That's all I can remember about it, but it was just the oddest combination of elements.
That's got to mean something. I don't think they're gonna have that in the Dream Dictionary. That's
probably not. I digging through my my social media records, and some of these I have no memory of now. There was one, so a close friend of mine passed away a few years ago, and I had definitely had a dream, and this is probably fits into the category of wishful thinking, where that friend of mine was no longer dead, or I actually put the words "revived" in the message I sent to a friend, so it sounds like he'd been brought back from the dead or something like that. But no one had told anyone about it, and so I was suddenly surprised to discover that my friend was no longer deceased, and we had some massive long conversation, which I didn't detail in the message that I sent to a friend of mine. But yeah, it definitely feels like a wishful thinking one.
You know, that really hits me, Pigs, because one of my best friends passed away. Gosh, it's probably been 15 years ago now, and I mean, we were real close. And so I'll occasionally have a dream where he's in it, and some of the dreams are he's not only is he not dead, but eventually I get used to the fact that he had died, but he's back, and I will hang out at his house and stuff. And it happens a lot, these dreams. And when I have a dream, I remember it's often he's in it, and his death is sort of bypassed. Like, I'm conscious that he died in the dream, but I guess I got over it, or he got over it, and so much like you said with the conversations, it'll be something where we'll have quite a chat, and I think to myself, my gosh, this is just what it would be like to chat with this fellow if he was still around. So I've been unnerved by those dreams. I mean, I guess they're good, but they're certainly odd.
Yeah, and it's got to be weird, especially with that period of time passing, because you're almost extrapolating what. Where that person would be now, kind of thing, I guess. Yeah, I'm sure there's a reason that those dreams come around. I mean, in some ways, I will say I've been comforted by dreams like that, of my friend. But it's, I think you're right. You wake up and you sort of come to grips with it. But, I've got this thing too. When I wake up, I never fully understand or remember a dream, so I think I kind of piece some of it together. Unknowingly, and because I've got a bad habit of just not remembering any of my dreams. So when I remember one, it's usually something that stands out. But
one of the funny things that Pick said was I used to do the same thing where I actually would had a handwritten dream journal, like a spiral notebook, and I remember going back at the end of the week and reading them, and some of them I didn't even remember writing them. It almost was like someone else had written it, just because I had no memory of writing that down. And then when I got my very first smartphone, I started trying to do it, voice recordings. I would wake up and be like, oh, I just dreamed that this and this and this happened. And it was the same thing. I could go back and flip through and listen to them. It was like somebody else with my voice had done. I didn't even remember it, but it's harder to do, when your wife smacks you and is like, quit talking in your dream journal over there, you dummy.
Hey, Pix, while we got you on here, I've been asking some of the listeners, have you ever had any experiences with that sleep paralysis that Kay had mentioned earlier?
I'm very happy to say no, because it sounds absolutely terrifying. so not really, no. I mean, I've definitely had the old lying in bed trying to go to sleep and seeing shapes in the darkness and stuff like that, but not in a kind of as Kate was saying, kind of trying to see the patterns and all that kind of thing, but definitely not actual sleep paralysis, and I hope to never have it, because
something I was wanting to bring up and I've totally forgotten until right now. Have you had any experiences, either one of you, this is for either of you or anyone in the chat, anyone in here sleepwalk? I was I wouldn't say a bad sleepwalker, but I can remember 2 or 3 times where I sleptwalk, And every time I did it, it was super duper creepy when I woke up and wasn't in bed. You guys had any problems like that?
I've had, not necessarily sleepwalking. I definitely had one of those ones where I've dreamt I've done something and then woken up and not been sure whether I have or not.
Sure.
So, for example, when I was living at my parents' house, I definitely remember getting up out of bed, walking into the bathroom, relieving myself, as we often do late at night, and then coming back and going back to bed, and then waking up and thinking, have I been to the toilet? I don't remember. But then I thought, wait, no, because my bedroom had like a picnic table in it in the dream, and clearly that's not what's in my bedroom in real life. So yeah, it made a bit more sense then. But yeah, I definitely had that, but not the other way around, where I've actually sort of woken up somewhere unexpected.
You ever done that, Flack?
No, what? Not like I'm not a sleepwalker, but I did have one time where I guess what happened was, you ever sleep on your arm wrong or something, and like you wake up and your arm's
all the time.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
So I had, I guess I had slept. I was a kid. I mean, I was probably 10 years old. And I slept on my arm wrong, and I had a dream that I fell and landed on my arm and broke my arm. And so, but it must have been because my arm was hurting, like it was in a bind or something, And so I woke up and couldn't move my arm. And so I was convinced that my arm really was broken, right? And so I went out in the living room. I think my dad was still like watching TV or something. I started crying. I was like, I broke my arm. He's like, what'd you do? And he was all like, and then finally I kind of woke up. I was like, hey, I didn't break my arm, and then I couldn't move it. And it was this whole thing. But I got to tell you, my very first roommate, when I got my first apartment, and a buddy of mine that I've known my entire life, we met when we were 4 years old. We moved in together, and he was one of these people. He wouldn't sleepwalk, but he would have complete conversations with you while he was asleep.
Yeah.
Just and have no recollection of what he was saying and wouldn't remember it afterwards. And I remember one time I was working late, and I came home and he was asleep on the couch, and he said, hey, we gotta go get some sandbags because my parents' house flooded. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, let me change clothes. And so I went in the bedroom and changed clothes and came out. And I said, you ready to go? And he sat back up and he goes, where are we going? And I said, well, to your parents' house. And he said, why? He said, because it flooded. He goes, it did? I go, you just told me this story. I'm not making this up. And the funny thing was, we didn't have a phone, so there was no way that they had called us or anything. But he would do that constantly, where he would just, sit there and look at you in the face and have these conversations. And he was clearly just playing asleep. It was a really, really strange thing.
My son is like that, and I'll talk to him. He talks in his sleep all the time, which is always unnerving. And his mom was the same way. She would do that all the time. And I'm waiting. I think he almost sleepwalks. I've been waiting. You can kind of tell. I've seen him almost get up and be half out of it. And I know the symptoms because, like I said, I could think of 3 times in my life where I did it. One time when I was a little kid, I walked down the stairs into the basement of our old house, which I never went down there when I was conscious ever. I was scared of it. And we had a toilet down there, and I guess I just used the toilet. I don't know why. I was out cold. I don't remember doing it. And then the one that really gets me is I woke up one time. I had this urge in my head that I was going to surprise. I just had this feeling I'm going to surprise my dad. I'm going to surprise him. And so I was out of it. But I can remember thinking this. And so I went outside and sat in the back seat of our car. And it was the middle of the night. And I sat there. I don't know how long I was in the car. And then I woke up and I was in the car. I was like,
wow,
what am I doing
really?
here? And that was because when you don't have control of your body and you sort of know what's going on, that was double super creepy to me. Me and my dad are both real light sleepers. And so I think I was in a real light sleep at the time. And But I mean, it was super. I'm telling you, waking up in the car was. I mean, it was super creepy. I had a friend Neil. He was a real bad sleepwalker. He was this big lumbering oaf of a guy, and his claim to fame is he got caught sleepwalking in his neighborhood nude, because he slept nude. So he would, and this happened multiple times. So that you could look at the window and just 6'1" nude punk is walking down your street, like Frankenstein lumbering around. So it's definitely
good rule of thumb. You see a 6'1" thug walking down the street naked, don't wake him up.
Yeah. I always wondered about that, if that was true, if that you would screw him up if you woke up a sleepwalker. I don't want to find out. Let's put it that way.
I suspect it might give them a fright, which might not be particularly good for them.
Hey, Pix, while we got you on here, I want to give a quick plug to your fine publication. Just a brief plug. Tell them what you're up to and what's in the mag this month, Pix.
So we just released issue 8 of Amiga Addict, which the cover feature for that is it's all about Raspberry Pi and how that's related to the Amiga, sort of accelerators and PyStorm and all that kind of stuff. And we've got a feature with an interview with one of the developers of famed Amiga, or infamous Amiga software, Xcopy.
Oh wow!
So that was quite interesting. So yeah, there's some good stuff in there.
That'll be a lot of fun. I just grabbed that, and I haven't got to look through it too much yet. But I'm anxious. I definitely want to see that. An infamous piece of software for sure. Well, listen, Pix. Hey, thank you so much for popping in and sharing your dreams and your disturbing nightmares.
I'll tell you what, I've got one more.
Oh, please share it. Go for it.
And because I mean, my dreams are all over the map, and I have some pretty dark ones, which I've probably not gone over here. But I've got this weird one that I found that I'd sent quite a detailed description of to a friend of mine. So I'm gonna read it to you verbatim. And I put, when you have a dream where you're transported into Formula One driver Lewis Hamilton's body and have to drive a Formula One race. The race appears to be in a giant department store or leisure centre. Unfortunately, on the warm-up lap, when you're avoiding the shoes in the shoes section, I took a wrong turn and I got lost in the giant leisure centre. At one point, I thought I'd found my way back, but it turns out it was an indoor racetrack for 80s rally cars, and I was going the wrong way around the track. Luckily, I was able to get the car up the half pipe at the side of the track and back into the leisure centre, at which point I was carrying the car under my arm like a surfboard. Then I asked the chap for directions, but he sent me the wrong way, and then I woke up. It's just the most bizarre series of events.
I'm so glad we kept you on for that. That is insane. And it brings me something. I'm glad. It's funny. Your dreams are getting me in the head on some of this stuff. These dreams where you're performing a task in the dream that you don't have no idea what you're doing. And in I have dreams all the time where I'm supposed to be doing something. Like wrestling is a good example. I have a dream where I'm supposed to be putting on a match. I'm not a wrestler, and in the dream I go out there and look like an idiot and don't know what I'm doing. Is that something that you guys have come across?
I definitely get that sort of thing. I'm not a particularly experienced traveller, and I'm also very bad at being on time for things. So I have frequent dreams of being late for planes, and missing flights, forgetting my passport, all those sorts of things. So yeah, being unknowledgeable about traveling, even though I've done it plenty of times now and not got anything wrong, but I still have those sorts of dreams.
You get those, Flack?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think when they always have those ones as a kid that the examples like, oh, I went to school and I forgot to put clothes on, or I forgot to do my homework. Although I just had a dream the other day where I was in college and I'd forgot to do homework. So it's like that general theme. There's just a lot of different twists to it, where I have a dream. I've had a repeating dream where I'll slowly start to realize that I've lost a car. Like I'll go over to my dad's or something, and then the garage will be open, and then I'll start thinking, didn't I used to have a car? And did I leave that car here? And I think maybe I moved away and forgot and left my car here. You know, just like weird things. And then, you know, we talked, I think it was Martin who called in earlier, who said that sometimes he has those things where he recognizes that it's a dream and then he can just continue dreaming it. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But when I usually have that, it wakes me up. Like when I have that moment, you know, kind of like what Pixels was saying. Like I remember one time I had this dream and Susan, my wife, had asked me to build a garage or whatever. And so I was out there doing, you know, I was nailing all this stuff. And I was in the middle of it and I go, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah,
and I immediately woke up.
Yeah,
it just like shocked me into
that's usually what happens
like
to
reality.
me. You know,
right? So I would be in the middle of an F1 race or whatever, and then I'd be like, "Hey, I don't know how to drive one of these," and then unfortunately I would wake up.
You know, I'm looking in chat here. Canadian Retro Things chimed in. He said, "When I was in drama at university, I often had a dream that going on stage, but not knowing what play I was in or any of the lines. Like that's a perfect example. That would be a nightmare, big time, if you're a drama major.
Right.
That's the absolute worst. That's for sure." Well, listen, again, we appreciate your picks for popping in, and hopefully you'll get you back on sometime soon. We're going to take a quick pause, and we're going to move on to our next caller. Again, if you are interested in talking to us, you can get in on the fun by hopping on Discord and trying your luck. We're easy to get along with. We'd love to hear your story. And you've got a little bit of time left before we wind this sucker up. So now is the time. The address is on the screen. Just hop in there and pop into our Discord, and we will bring you up. We'll be back in just a few moments with some more action. Stay tuned.
Shopping, dining, beautiful lakes and rivers, and a monster? Welcome to Braxton County, West Virginia. Centrally located, Braxton County, West Virginia is the ideal place to visit. Natural beauty and recreation abound with 2 beautiful lakes for easy kayaking and canoeing, and many hiking trails. Did we mention the Flatwoods Monster? That's right. Visit Braxton County, West Virginia's Flatwoods Monster Museum and not only learn about the Flatwoods Monster, but walk in the same footsteps as the people who witnessed it. Nearly all of our attractions can be found within a few miles of Interstate 79. Visit us online at braxtonwv.org. That's braxtonwv.org. Braxton County, West Virginia. Center yourself here.
It's the world's only Mothman Museum, the premier destination for Mothman fans. The Mothman Museum is the only place where you can see the largest collection of props and memorabilia from the Mothman Prophecies movie, and read rare historical documents from the Scarborough Mallet Mothman eyewitnesses themselves documenting what they experienced that fateful night on November 15th, 1966. The museum is located right next to the Mothman statue on Main Street in Point Pleasant.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
All right, we are back. We are back in black with Flack, everybody. Thanks for hanging and banging with us tonight. We've had some interesting calls tonight. Flack, what do you think so far, man?
Oh man, it's so interesting. And it's such a weird topic, like a normal day to day, like when you're remember back when we used to go into the office and we did all that and like two grown men, and you're like, so what'd you dream about last night? Well, I dreamed I was a monkey. I mean, it's just weird to talk about. So this forum is really cool for being able to hear all these stories and share stories. One of the things that I wanted to, hopefully one of our callers, or maybe not, will have a story, but I wanted to talk a little bit about lucid dreaming, which we've kind of referred to. Martin talked a little bit about, but lucid dreaming is, of course, being aware that you're dreaming, and there's kind of two levels. One is just the awareness that you're dreaming, and then the second one is being able to control your dream, and I've had both of those. I read this book, this paperback book I got from a garage sale when I was like 10 or something, and it was all about dreams, and it had this whole chapter about lucid dreaming, and it had this technique, and I used to do it all the time, and it worked sometimes, but not too often. But it said when you lay down for bed, when you're about to fall asleep, you imagine yourself at the top of a staircase, and there's 100 steps on this step case, right? And so at the very beginning you say 100, I'm dreaming. And then you take a step down, just mentally, and you say 99, I'm dreaming. Then 98, and you keep doing that, and there would be times where I would all of a sudden be, doing whatever in my dream, like I'm riding a motorcycle or something, and I would be saying, over and over in my head, like I'm dreaming, and then it would jar me, and I would be like, oh, this is a dream, and so it actually worked, but it worked a lot better when I was a kid. First of all, when I know some of the people said when they lay down, they go right to sleep. When I lay down, it's like an hour and a half. Like I'll watch a movie or episodes of The Love Boat or something ridiculous, so I don't have great sleep patterns like that, but I don't know. I wish that still worked, because that was such a cool thing. I remember one time I had a dream these bad guys were after me, and I was like, oh, this is a dream. Like I figured it out, and I was in my house, and I ran out to the garage, and I was like, I'm flying away on a dolphin. That's a true story. And I got on a dolphin, and I flew away. I was like, I'm not hanging around this place. So yeah, those are kind of dreams, but I just don't really do it anymore, unfortunately.
I've tried, of course, and I think I've had lucid dreams, but it's hard for me to tell, to be honest with you. But the thought, my buddy used to talk about it all the time, doing it. But it's one of those things. It would be great to be able to know for certain that you were in there doing it. But I've also tried the OBE thing with similar results. I will say, hey, listen, check this out. We have a text entry here. This was sent to us. I'm going to read this thing. We've also got Matt here on the line. Before I read the text, how you doing tonight, Matt?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Beautiful. I'm going to read this thing, then we can comment on it here.
All right.
I believe this is from our own buddy here, Super Tech Boy, who writes, worst dream I ever had was I dreamt my hometown was victim to a nuclear attack. Holy smokes. I remember going towards into the blast area and seeing charred bodies. I remember seeing demons pulling the souls of the charred bodies into hell. In the dream, I also remember suffering from radiation sickness and getting sicker and sicker. I woke up crying from that dream. No kidding. That is the demons were pulling the souls out of the dead. That's hardcore. That sounds like a King Diamond video if he had an unlimited budget.
Oh, Lord. I mean, I had a bad dream one time that I had Big Bird's legs.
Yep.
So I don't... I'm not having no demons pulling people's souls out. That's terrible.
It continues. He's also written here, as a kid, I also used to have a recurring nightmare where I would be on a beach and a giant dark wave as black as night towered over me, waiting to pull me into the ocean. The wave was sentient and had almost a snarling or growling noise at me. I never remembered the wave crashing down on me. It was always a short dream and always woke up quick. That reminds me, if you've ever seen Creepshow 2, there's one of the mini stories that it's called The Raft, and these teens are tormented by a large black mass that floats around the water. That's what that reminds me of. That would also be super duper creepy. That's creepy stuff, Tech. I hope that you have good dreams to go along with those horrible, horrible nightmares. Very disturbing stuff. Speaking of disturbing stuff, it's our good buddy Matt. just give you the business, Matt. How you doing,
guys?
Oh man, we're having a good time tonight, man. We've heard a lot of crazy, strange stuff, man.
Yes,
so
I've been listening.
So, are you a big dreamer, a nightmare guy? What's your thing?
Not really. I mean, I can probably count the number of dreams I've had that I can remember, probably on hands and toes, or fingers and toes, rather.
Well, you got a good one?
Maybe. Like a couple of them you all have already covered. You know, the flying thing.
Let me ask you before you get started. Have you ever fallen or been shot in a dream? Do you recall ever that happening? And what was the result? Did you just wake up or?
The falling thing is not falling per se, but I have in elevators.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things. Is like at the end, you know, it stops all of a sudden, and then the door opens.
There you go.
Just after I splat on the ground, but it doesn't seem to hurt me. But
that's your dream being a jerk. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Now, have you? You know, we talked to Kate early in the show about sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
Has that ever been a thing that you had to suffer through?
Only once that I can recall.
Yeah.
And it was after I'd already learned what it was, so I knew what was going on. So it really didn't bother me all that much.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe an illness or something had something to do with it.
Yeah. So do you tend to remember your dreams, or do you often forget them?
I don't really remember them.
What about a bad nightmare? Have you had a really bad nightmare that stuck with you?
There are a few that I can think of. One when I was a kid, I was just in my room playing, or in my room hiding from the T-Rex running around outside. I think Jurassic Park may have had something to do with that.
Yeah, that would. It's funny if you think about it, because we've kind of touched on this earlier. Yeah. I had a dream with the Joker. And then Mario had the dream with Jason Voorhees coming at him. You've had the Tyrannosaurus coming after you. I suppose those kid dreams that you have where you're being chased by stuff, they mature over the years depending on what era you live in. I wonder if kids in the 1800s or the 1700s or the pioneer days dreamed of a guy coming at them with an axe or a bear or a particularly grumpy badger.
Yeah, probably.
I had a dream after we saw. I got to figure out. I'll have to look this up what year it came out. But I got to go to the theater to go see Flash Gordon in 1980. So,
oh yeah.
Depending on when it was, I was 7 or 8, one or the other. And there's a scene towards the end where Flash and I think it's Baron and they're like when they're storming the castle, you know, and there's those bad guys that look like they're kind of like stormtroopers, but they're wearing red.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like
oh, yeah, yeah.
And they go in there, and then there's that guy with the goggles, and they pull the goggles off to like use the goggles, and it turns out that guy was like a android or something, you know, like it was all wires and sparks and stuff, and it just dies, and they're like, uh-oh. I mean, they're like, whoops, we pulled a guy's face off, and then they just keep moving, you know, and so this is two things. Number one, I had a dream that the same like someone pulled. I didn't wear glasses, but like someone pulled sunglasses off and my eyes came out or something.
Holy moly!
It was right around that time. But this was one of those dreams, and this is something I wanted to ask you and Matt about, where I woke up, but I didn't really wake up. Like I fake woke up. Like I thought I woke up, but I was still dreaming. And I looked, of course, how could I look? And I was like, I almost really did fall out. Like, they were really there, you know? And then I really woke up. It was like almost like those fake endings in horror movies in the 80s, you know what I mean? Like that, you think you've woken up, but you're still dreaming. That ever happened to you?
Yes.
Yes. I've had the Inception-esque dream.
Although I like that movie. Speaking of, because that is something that has, but they went too stupid with it. Dreaming a dream, 50 dreams. But yeah, waking up from a dream in a dream, I've definitely had that happen, and it's weird. That's all you can say about
absolutely.
it. And you often wonder, what? I don't know about you guys, but when I wake up, I can be kind of hazy there for a couple minutes, and I often wonder, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, it's like if your brain just tries to piece something together that you can remember, and it turns out all goofy. Because one of the things I was reading when I was researching this show this week is that the funny things about dreams is, to this day, there's no one that has any real proof as to why we dream or what purpose the dream serves. Researchers don't know why we do it. They don't know what it does to the brain, if anything. And so it's untapped territory, untapped potential to figure out what's going on there. And I often wonder if some of the weirder stuff, like the Inception effect, it takes place just as your mind is, you're trying to make something out of what your unconscious mind was thinking about.
I'll tell you the best theory I ever read, and this kind of goes back to something Kate said about how human beings like to, we are pattern animals. I mean, that's what our brains like to do. I think the perfect example of this is when you've been thinking about someone and then the phone rings and you go, I was just thinking about that guy, and then my phone rang. But what you don't remember are the million times you thought of other people and your phone didn't ring, Yeah. But our brain wants to link those things together. And so I read a theory a long time ago about dreams that basically, at night when our memory and our brains are basically filing things away from short-term memory to long-term memory, and when those little neurons fire off, it's just these little glimpses of things throughout our day or memories that we had or whatever, but our brain doesn't know what's really going on, and so it just kind of starts linking them together in some sort of narrative. So you have this thing where you're like, I've got a motorcycle, and now you're riding a motorcycle, and there's this friend I had that I saw today, and then all of a sudden that person's there, and so it's just your brain trying to make logical sense out of something that it doesn't really understand. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems to be as good as any other theory I've read.
Yeah, I'm buying it. What about you, Matt? You buying that one?
Yeah, sounds good.
Matt?
I want to know, for Matt, if he, as you get older, do you find that you have more nightmares or do you have more dreams? Not older than, us.
No, you buried him. Go ahead, Matt.
Not really. It's just they tend to be weird. I don't know that I've really ever had what would classify historically as a nightmare.
Interesting.
Lucky you, eh?
Yeah. Generally just too weird to really classify either way. Most vivid one I can think of. Not sure if I wanted to go into this.
No, get into it. This is the main event of your dream sequence. Let's hear it. You got to go out in a strong one, Matt. What is it?
All right. I once dreamt I woke up and I was someone else.
Really? And you were? Yeah. Do you know who the person was?
Yes.
Okay.
Someone of the female persuasion.
Oh. Okay. So let me make sure I got this right. You went to bed and you woke up as a lady.
Yes.
And then what happened?
More so someone I was an acquaintance with. Didn't really know real well, but.
Oh.
Well, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. This was several years ago.
Yeah.
I remember, probably things I probably wouldn't mention on here, but
That's very intriguing. I can say that's what dream I've never had. Flack?
Yeah.
What if you are a woman and this is the dream, Matt?
This would be the nightmare.
I will say, Mansoor Balls just chimed in with your dream. He said that's not unusual. He says. So,
Oh, okay.
So, but I've never. That's a new one on me.
I seem to remember it ending like in an alleyway, being chased by scary people. I don't know.
That took a weird turn. I gotta say.
Yeah, I know.
You weren't kidding. That's I'm glad to take the time after the show and try to figure out what that means, because there's got to be a meaning behind it. But God only knows what it was. Matt, that was a good one to go out on, my friend.
All right.
Thank you very much for chiming in and sharing your innermost thoughts and desires. We appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Matt.
What do you think about that, Flack?
Talk to you later.
See you later, dude.
I don't know that I've ever had a dream where I was somebody else. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, that is a strange one there. Listen, we're going to take a very brief 2-second break here. We'll be back in 2 shakes of a lamb. Until we return, please enjoy this hilarious commercial.
It's the world's only Mothman Museum, the premier destination for Mothman fans. The Mothman Museum is the only place where you can see the largest collection of props and memorabilia from the Mothman Prophecies movie, and read rare historical documents from the Scarborough Mount Mothman eyewitnesses themselves documenting what they experienced that fateful night on November 15th, 1966. The museum is located right next to the Mothman statue on Main Street in Point Pleasant.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
All right, we are back, and we are ready to go with our next caller. Sir, if you could re-raise your hand there, we will pull you in violently in a dreamlike way. Let's see if we can get him up in here. That was interesting, coming back as a lady in your dream. That would be an odd way to wake up, and I could certainly see where that one would be memorable. Because
Sure, yeah.
that is a new one on me. So I believe we're going to be, I believe we've got him here. Is this the Texas foosballer on the line?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
We can. Tex, how are you this evening, man?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be here.
I'm glad you popped in to share some time with us and some of your stories. Have you been listening long on the show tonight?
I've caught the show from the beginning tonight.
Oh,
Last
great.
week I caught the tail end, but
Very
I've
good.
been here.
Very good. So, before we get into your various experiences, what do you make of this last dream from Matt? Have you ever had a dream where you woke up as another person or even another gender?
No, that's something I've never experienced. That was quite interesting.
I kind of want that to happen now. I wonder if there's a way can you do that with lucid dreaming, Flack?
All I'm thinking of is, I'm not that attractive as a man. I'm gonna make a real ugly woman. Better stick with what I got here.
I didn't think of it that way. You got a good point there. So what is on your mind tonight, Tex? Do you have a good one for us?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
All right.
It's kind of touchy, so I hope it doesn't freak anybody out.
Okay.
I've actually suppressed this and haven't talked about it since childhood. This is the first time I've actually put it up, so it's kind of interesting. I'm going to try to fight back any tears. But yeah, it's kind of a doozy of a story.
Okay.
So when I was young, about 8 years old, I got really sick, fever. And I can barely remember it because I was so young and I was so sick. But I had a high fever, and I remember my dad taking my temperature, saying that I was 104. Should we take him to the hospital? And you got to remember back then in the 80s, things were a lot more relaxed back then. But they were very concerned. I could see their concern. And my mom said, well, what are we going to do? And they had called over my aunt and uncle, and they came over. They were visiting. I was in the bed. I was sick. I was kind of in and out of consciousness. And they said, well, we need to get, and they were speaking half English, half Spanish, and I don't know Spanish. But they were basically saying we need to get his grandmother will be here. It's very important. She needs to get over here as soon as possible. So like an hour later, my grandmother shows up, but she's very old and very frail. She's like in her 80s, and she's being escorted into my room with my two uncles, like one on either side of her arm, like holding her up because she can barely walk. She's very frail. And she speaks nothing but Spanish. I speak nothing but English, so we don't really communicate. But she comes over, and this is going to kind of tie into what Mario was talking about last week at the end, when I kind of caught to the end of the show.
Hey, Tex, I hate to interrupt you, but make sure your face is right up on your mic because we're losing you a little bit on it when you move away.
Okay, is that any better?
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. Because I don't want to miss this. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she pulls out an egg, and she pulls out like a jar and some straw, and she rubs the egg all over my body, like my forehead. She starts at my forehead. She goes in my head. She goes all around my whole body. And then she takes the egg and she says some kind of a prayer from the egg. And then she puts it in the jar of water, puts the straw in the water, and she says another prayer. And then she puts it underneath my bed. And then she says something to my aunt and my father and mother, and she does another prayer, all in Spanish. I have no idea what they're saying. And so then my uncle's escorted by her elbows again. And so I fall asleep. And I had the weirdest dream that night. I dreamed that my grandmother was floating in the bed, above my bed, and she was sitting like Indian style on this. There was like this aura around her, like this weird aura around her. And she started talking to me, and I could understand her. Even though she was speaking Spanish and I don't know Spanish, we were communicating. And she was just asking me about, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? All these questions, and we were just having this, beautiful conversation. And one of the weird things was, she was sharing with me her life and her childhood, and as she was telling me stories about her life, she would turn from an old frail lady into like a young lady, into a little girl, and she just kept going back and forth, floating on this cloud above me. And it was just the weirdest but very peaceful experience. And then the next thing I know, my dad is waking me up, and I'm in a pool of sweat. Like I have sweat all over me. The whole bed is drenched in sweat. And he's like, "Do you feel better?" And I broke my fever, and I felt better. Like I wasn't ill or sick anymore. And turns out that same night when they took her home, she passed away. And I skipped one part. She had told me, the last thing she told me, when my dad was shaking me awake, she goes, "And now you must go on." She said it just like that. And it was like a huge thunderclap when she said it. Like it was very scary. And my dad was shaking me at the same time, waking me up, whatever he was doing. And, that is just like, it kind of created I became like a black sheep of the family with some of my family members, because they all like have this thing like, it was some kind of, something supernatural about it. And in other parts of my family, like have this reverence for me. Like they were like, she touched you, and she, all these weird things they would say. But to me, I just remember that was the day that but it was a very weird, coincidental experience, and it was all in a dream. I had this beautiful conversation with her, and I can barely remember bits and pieces. I wish I would have made more of an effort to remember that, but I thought I'd share it. It seemed to kind of tie into the theme here.
Wow, that is one heck of a story, Tex. And how old did you say you were when this happened?
I was 8 years old.
It's funny. I was watching Kate in the chat. Kate is still around, and she said that her grandmother, also Mexican, did this for her as well. So this is perhaps a tradition of sorts. Hopefully Kate's grandmother didn't pass away, but that's, I have heard about this must be something, because I know this sort of thing is used for bunco. I would see like a gypsy angle for stuff like this, but that stuff generally derives from somewhere. Do you have any idea like how she had that knowledge, or what was the basis of that? Have anyone in your family talked about it? I mean, was she a religious lady, or?
Yeah, she was religious, but she wasn't like church going religious. She was actually Indian more than Mexican.
Uh-huh.
She was from a native Mexican Indian. She's indigenous Mexican, which is not your normal Mexican. She was like an Indian.
It's like a Native American, but yeah.
Yeah.
Native North American.
So it had.
Yeah.
Yeah. But unfortunately, I kind of lost all contact with most of my family, so I never got to inquire about our family history or what transpired or anything that would have been helpful as knowing. So that's unfortunately a sever. Things got severed there.
Well, I will say this, now not to get too mushy about it or whatnot, but the way I look at stuff like this, you look at it from two angles, and I'm sure you've thought about this, Tex. This could have been something that a superstitious old lady did to try to relieve you of your illness, right? And she just so happened to have passed at an inopportune time. It's possible. But at the bare minimum, she was trying to relieve you of your suffering. On the flip side, she could have used a hidden knowledge lost to the most of modern society to use her special ability there, or her knowledge of how this works, to cure you, and sort of, at the sacrifice of herself. So it's a beautiful story either way it goes, I think. And it's a nice tribute to the lady. I'm sure she was a super nice lady, and just to do that for you, either way, it's an act of true love, I think.
I can appreciate what you just said, and actually most of my life, teenagehood, young adulthood, I just looked at it as being she was just a very superstitious person, and it was just circumstantial. She passed away at the same time that all that happened. But as I got older and became more open-minded, I started thinking that possibly there was more to it than that, and I know this is going to sound weird, but I kind of look for her and seek her in my dreams now. And I don't know why I do that, but I'm hoping to one day see her again. It hasn't happened, but
Well,
I feel there might be more to it.
Here's the thing. I think anybody that says that we know everything is fooling themselves. Like, we discover things to this day. You know what I mean? So I will tell you that my wife, who is one of the smartest people I know, tells me that, this is a true story, that when she was in middle school, she went to a sleepover, and they watched The Exorcist, and they watched Witchboard, and after Witchboard, one of the girls had a Ouija board, and so they were doing it, and my wife said she didn't want to do it. She said it was just giving her bad feelings and made her upset to her stomach. She was like, I just didn't want any part of it. And that night, while she was at the sleepover, both of her grandparents passed away. They passed away on the same night. And so
wow.
Well, and first of all, to this day, she won't watch either of those films.
Yeah.
Which I can't really blame her, But, so for me to say, I haven't had that experience, but I can't say that it's impossible. I can just say that I haven't had that experience, and she will tell you, she's the most logical person. She's the most left brain person I know. She has, every day what we're going to spend every day in a giant Excel spreadsheet. She's super logical and all that, but she also says, I had this experience and I can't explain it. I can't explain, why did I feel so, all the other girls were doing this? Why did I feel so averse to it that night? Why? What was, she said literally, I was sick at my stomach. It just, something was wrong with it, And so I think there are things that we just don't know all the answers to.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you on that. And I will say, Foos, man, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Absolutely.
That was a great story. And I hope going forward, and of course you've known about this since it happened. I hope that you it's something that you hold in your mind as a pleasant thing. It's an amazing tale. I really thought that was an interesting story. So we really appreciate that, Tex.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Aaron. It's great to be here.
Hey, thanks, man. We will catch you again next time. We're going to take one more break, everybody, and then we're going to bring on our last guest of the evening, in the main event spot. So we will be back. Hold on with us. We're going for one more.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
Woo! That was one heck of a wacky one there, Flaxter. I really like that deep, touching stuff there. Thanks for sharing that one, Foos. We really appreciate it, my friend.
Excellent.
We're going to try to get one last caller here on the line. Can you, if you'll raise your hands in there. I'm going to switch scenes here since I went to the wrong one. There we go. If we could get you one more time, Dave. There you go. And we will get you in here. This has been a real interesting night. I've enjoyed all these stories. And I think everyone has had something very interesting to share on these things. And I'm pleased as punch, Flack, to get to share, take part in all these interesting tales. This is the whole point of the show. I like to hear from people to give them a platform to share this kind of thing. Because heck, where are you gonna hear this sort of stuff? You know, not very often, man.
And you can't just hit up the guy working in drive-through, and be like, oh, by the way, one time I dreamed I was a woman. I mean, it's just you gotta have the right. You gotta have the right audience for it, No,
I'm gonna try. Dave's having a little trouble. Dave, raise your hand one more time, my friend. We'll try it one more time here. There it is. Let's see if we can get you in here, man. Okay, hang on. You should see an acceptance button that pops up here in a second, Dave, and you can just. There he is, Dave Z. Is that you?
Good evening, everybody.
Oh, great to have you on here, Dave. Dave out in Arizona, so it's still early days for you out there, Dave.
Yeah, it's only 7:30.
Not too, so. These are tales from the slightly dark side for you, and this one.
Good. I'm very excited about this. Right, when I saw the vote in the channel, I definitely voted for this as soon as I could. I have a lot of thoughts, so I hope not to take too much of your time.
No, there's no hurry, Dave. You go right ahead. The floor is yours.
The first thing I want to say is I actually enjoy nightmares. Now, one of the questions, Rob, I think you asked is, do I normally have nightmares or dreams? As I grow older, I have less and less nightmares, right? Because the kind of person I am, right, I don't really get afraid by situations. If I'm in the woods and I hear a noise, I don't think Jason or Freddy. I think crackhead or bear, right? So my adrenaline gets up as opposed to my fear. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand that fully.
When you're in a nightmare, you get the fear, and then you wake up and you're sweating. And I never get feelings like that except for when I get a good nightmare. Does it make sense? So I kind of enjoy the nightmare, right? A couple things about the nightmare. I do encounter the problem where I can't run. Or if I do run, it is extremely, extremely slow. I've encountered that many times.
That walking into the wind feeling.
Yes, or molasses, stuck in the mud, whatever. Yeah, my limbs just don't move, and I seem to be going 100 miles an hour, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah. I've had that same thing happen. I wonder if that is the basis for every slasher film ever. Because it doesn't seem like they get too far either. I feel the same way.
Another thing you had talked about is getting shot. One of my most vivid dreams ever was getting shot. I think it was a rip from, I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie My Blue Heaven with Steve Martin, where he was a gangster. It was a halfway comedy, but one of the parts of the thing was they knew who the killer was because he used a 22 to the back of the head, right? And I didn't have this dream right after I had seen this movie, but I'm pretty sure it was because, man, so the dream, I don't remember being abducted, but I may have been abducted in the dream. But I all of a sudden, I had like 3 guys holding me in the back of an old station wagon. Remember the old station wagons that had like the flat surface and kind of a thing? No, that doesn't ring a bell. Station
Can you be
wagons.
more specific? Like on the back doors, flat?
Like so some station wagons used to have like 3-row seating, right? But
Yeah.
some of them you could put the 3rd row down so it was flat. So you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
haul
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it was down flat like that, and like 3 guys were holding me, and one guy held a little 22 automatic right to the back, right behind my ear, and pow, bam! I swear I was dead. It was it was one of the most realest dreams I ever had. And I woke up. It was really something, and it was really weird because I don't know if you've ever seen My Blue Heaven, but it was more of a comedy. It wasn't. This was more like the Godfather. It was horrible. Another. So I also currently I'm having a lot of reoccurring dreams. Over the past 10 or 15 years.
Sure.
Every month or so, I kind of have the same thing. And one thing I wanted to speak out on this show, because if it ever happens, it proves that I am also clairvoyant.
Okay.
Is aliens. Now I'm not talking your Spock or your Close Encounters aliens. I'm talking because we know if aliens come here, I mean, everybody already knows. If they're coming here to kill us and take all our stuff, right? Everybody knows this. So it's always a confrontation, right? It's always a global. I'm part of a ragtag group of combatants who are fighting the aliens. I don't really remember a lot of the detail, but whether it's attacks in the sky or ground forces, I've definitely had that dream, I don't know, 20, 30 times over the years. So if aliens ever come in mass, I told you first.
Good to know. I
How
hope
are
they
you
don't all hate
fighting
us.
the? Are you like flying stuff when you fight them, or are you fighting them from the ground, or how do you?
Most of the time, it's me from the ground. I don't ever remember me like in the airplane, but I remember stuff like you can look up into the sky and see the confrontations and whatnot. It's never me. Bits and hazes. I do keep a notepad next to my bed, right? Because you wake up, I try and jot down some of the stuff. But it's usually, like I said, it's not me driving a tank and leading the charge, right? It's more the overall bigger picture. There's an alien invasion, and it's just bad. It's bad for all of us. So watch out when they come.
I hope you're not clairvoyant, Dave.
I agree. One of the other reoccurring dreams I've been having over the past 5 or 10 years, it's not really a nightmare, but it's more of a vacation, if you will. I usually have to drive to this hotel, and the drive is kind of always different, but it's always the same kind of hotel. They know me. I know them. I have this room there. The layout's the same. It's really, really strange. It's close to the border. I think it's close to the Canada border because I can go over there and gamble. And I would go over there and gamble. And again, it was the same kind of familiarity. I would go to these same casinos and I would walk in and they'd, oh, hey, and the receipts. It was really weird stuff. And I'm not a gambler. I don't know where that comes from. And it's really weird because I realized that I know I have to cross the border to go gambling. And it's really strange. But again, that's another one I've had 20 or 30 times over the years.
20 or 30 times?
Well,
holy
I'm
smokes.
old. I'm old.
You're not that old.
Hey, that's only one dream a month,
That must mean something, Dave, though. If you get 20 or 30, that's someone's telling you to go gamble in Canada. I'd get in a car after about the 15th. I'd be heading back up. I'd go up to Hoser Town.
Is gambling legal? I don't even know if gambling's legal in Canada.
It doesn't matter. I don't know what they use for currency up there. Get some loonies or whatever they use up there. Go out there and go to the alley and find a dice game just to get that dream off your back.
How often do you think that you remember your dreams, Dave? Like in a typical month?
So as I said, I keep the pad next to the bed, right?
Yeah.
So if I wake up with a good one, I'll write it down, but I'll be very vague. Hotel dream, right? Because I'll know what that means. I'll know that's the dream where I go to the hotel. I also have other dreams where I move to a new city, and it's always really cool because the house I move into is already like pre-filled with all kinds of stuff, right? So that's
Yeah.
always cool.
Andy.
But
yeah.
well, you know, I dig through the stuff and I find this stuff, but again, never the same kind of stuff. It's never like I'm finding a bunch of computer. It's just stuff. I don't pool junk. I don't even know what. But I've had that one quite a few times. But the biggest one I have quite often is the aliens, the gambling, and going to the hotel. And like I said, it's always the same kind of hotel. The hotel, if I go into one elevator, I got to go up to like floor 5 or 7, and I end up getting caught going into that elevator and having to go down in the stairs. It's always really strange. Really strange stuff.
That is strange. Now, does anything? You told me you're not scared of your nightmares. I'd be interested to know. You've not had one ever in your adult life that left you shaken?
Oh yeah, I'm not afraid in like real life. Like I said, if I'm in real life and I'm in a situation, I get more adrenaline rush than fear.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not a big supernatural guy. So like I said, if I'm out in the woods and I hear a noise, I'm thinking attacker, or whether it be human or animal. If I'm in a situation, and it's not that same kind of a fear, you know, when I get those nightmares, it's like the freezing fear. You know, they can't move. That maybe that's why you like running molasses, because I'm frozen in the fear, you know. But when in real life situations, I just tend to get all adrenaline up, right? And it's a whole different feeling. You know, your heart's pounding like the same thing, right? But it's not that feeling of helplessness I get during nightmares. I don't know, but it's fun. You wake up sweating. Yeah, it's great.
Hey,
That's about all I had, boys.
We were talking about this just at the end of the last call. That I've read this this article one time that said basically the way that your brain is supposed to work is that when you're dreaming, your motor skills are disabled, right? Otherwise, when we're dreaming about fighting aliens, we would hop out of bed and be running around or whatever. So to keep us safe, we're supposed to do that, right? Then when we wake up, like right when you're in that mode, you switch over. So your motor skills are basically coming, you know, online, and the part of your brain where those dreams are shuts down. And so that's why there's just that little bit of, you know, why we forget our dreams and why they go away so quickly. And they say, if you're going to try to remember your dreams, they always say lay still, because the more you move, you're using that same part of your brain that's kind of overriding where that is. But tied into that theory is that's why in dreams why we can't run, is because something scares us and we're like, oh, it's time to run, and your brain is sending that thing, but it's getting confused because obviously your muscles aren't responding, and so you get that weird you know, sensation where you're trying to move. I get the same thing a lot of times. If I sleep with the CPAP almost religiously, almost every night, but sometimes I'll fall asleep out in the recliner and I know that I'm not breathing well because I'll have these dreams where I can't talk, and I can't catch my breath, you know, and I'll be talking and all I can muster is like the faintest whisper where I'm like, you know, like that, and nobody can hear me and stuff, and I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh God, I gotta go get my CPAP on, you know. But yeah, but it's just that weird thing of your brain, you know, not basically knowing that you're dreaming and sending, you know, telling your legs to move, telling you to do these things, and your body's just not reacting.
So along those same lines, we're talking about dreams. What about our animals? I've got 2 dogs. Both of them are like 80 and 90 pounds, totally spoiled, and happen to sleep right next to me. By right next to me, I mean one by my head and one by my head.
Yeah.
Quite often, they fall asleep before I do. and I can hear them and I can feel them, and their legs are twitching. Are they dreaming they're in a meadow chasing something down? Are they dreaming, whatnot? But I definitely get feet movement. They're twitching and running, and yeah, So I can't tell what I'm doing when I'm sleeping, but I'm pretty sure I'm doing the same thing to them.
Yeah, my cat definitely, at least one of my cats definitely does that a lot. And you can hear them making little noises and stuff. I often think about that. I wonder what an animal dreams about. Especially if we don't know the structure of an animal's brain. Like, in terms of this sort of thing, the subconscious, and what what kind of trials and tribulations does an animal store back in its subconscious to dream about that night? Who knows?
Otis dreams of catching somebody in the backyard
and tearing them up.
Yes, that's his dream.
It's funny how dreams have these weird rules, right? Some people dream in black and white. Some people dream in color. Some people say they die if they hit the ground flying. Sometimes you hear they don't. The thing with the guns, you can't read in the dream. This shtick. There's all these. You hear all these things, but we really, if the leading scientists don't know what's going on, you wonder how much of this is absolutely crap.
I definitely do dream in color. I dream in color. I've never, not that I can really remember, had the flying dream. And I've never been able to control my dreams nor realize that I am in a dream. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So you're not a lucid
dreamer. Aaron, I think I saw this for sale. You guys will probably both know that. You remember Fate magazine?
I've got a ton of those.
I think I saw it in Fate. It could be Popular Mechanics, but one of those two.
That's a big leap there.
That's a wide range.
But it was like in the back, like in the ads or whatever, and it was a sleep mask that went over your eyes, but it had flashing red LEDs inside it. Yeah, and that's what it was supposed to do, was trigger you when you were dreaming, and then when you saw those lights, you would know that you're dreaming. I never bought one or knew anybody that had one, but I always thought that was a fascinating idea.
I've heard about those. I've never used one, but I have, and I've even seen them for sale, believe it or not, but I've never bought one.
Yeah.
I do sleep with earplugs and a face mask covering my eyes. I go for total immersion.
Yeah.
I am not worried about intruders, because at this point in my life, I'm old and slow. And before, I'll hear Otis killing them, or at least, getting shot well before, but yeah, I go for total immersion when I sleep. I got these little foamy earplugs I put in, and I've got a face mask. It's fantastic.
I've never tried using earplugs. I used to have a mask I'd wear, but I used to sleep during the day because I worked the night shift, so it was a necessity.
I sleep with earplugs every night. Actually, I sleep with earbuds. And I started because I used to travel for work all the time. And let's just say Holiday Inn and Marriott's don't have the thickest walls. So Disneyland, and not anything, lascivious or whatever, but I mean, just people slamming their doors and banging the walls and whatever they're doing. So I would just, plug my phone in, put my earbuds in, and go to sleep. And now I'm just so used to it that it's hard for me to sleep without it.
I'm a fan guy. My ritual is to turn the fan on, and I listen to the same YouTube classical music video audio every night. It's exactly the same every night. I turn the fan on. I'd be afraid to wear earplugs because I'm with my kid in the house. Also, crazy stuff happens here. It's not just the kid, and so I'll usually I can't tell you the number of times I'm sprung out of bed to take care of something at 4 a.m. So that's my lot in life.
Have you ever had stuff that you're listening to, and I have this all the time, get into your dreams?
Yeah. Oh, I've had stuff. I've been listening to stuff that was disturbing, that really messed me up, and so I don't listen to anything like I wouldn't put on something like, and I know this is tame, but like a white zombie. I would never listen to something like that during sleep, because that does screw me up for sure.
I got a app for my phone that was like, peaceful, relaxing things to listen to. Like there was one that was rain on a tin roof, and it's just a loop, and you listen to it at night. But I had one that was like, gentle sounds of the pond, and there were frogs and rain and the wind blowing. And I mean, like 2 or 3 nights in a row, I had this dream. I was like in a pond hanging out, and I was like, I gotta listen to something else, man. I'm stuck in this pond every night.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't music. Lights out and earplugs in and headset on out.
I love it. What?
Hopefully, if I do it right, I can make it in there before the dogs. But hopefully, but usually what I try to do is I try to make sure that they're asleep out front and then sneak in. But thanks a lot for having this Nightmares show. I've really wanted to talk about dreams and nightmares for a long time, and this is fantastic.
Well,
Thank
great,
you guys.
Thanks for closing us out, Dave. We appreciate it. I guess Flack, we should probably it's a slim trim 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think it's time to take this thing to the house.
I must have dozed off. What happened?
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, someone out there that's listening still awake.
It's all a fever dream.
But boy, I hope everyone enjoyed hearing about everybody's dreams and nightmares. I know I sure did. Really enjoyed listening to the various stories and the theories. You know, the dream and nightmare state is one that we have little knowledge of, and I doubt in my lifetime we're going to lick it. But it's still neat to sit around and try to ponder what it all means. At the end of the day, we just cross our fingers and hope we have a nice, quiet dream to close out your afternoon. Flack, what are you going to dream about tonight, my friend?
I'm going to have good dreams that everything worked on tonight's show.
Yeah, keep hoping, pal.
So that's a sweet dream for me. So
well, listen, Flack, I really appreciate you coming on board and helping me out tonight. You are a master of ceremonies, and you certainly know your stuff. You are a heck of a Texan and a hell of a man, my friend, despite the fact you're in Oklahoma. Everyone, please, if I could leave you with one bit of advice before we take this thing to the house, all I can tell you is have pleasant dreams. We'll see you next week on Conversations from the Dark Side.
You have just experienced Conversations from the Dark Side. Until next week, try to enjoy the daylight.